Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Monday, February the 9th, 2026. So hopefully everybody's having a good start to the week thus far. So I do, let's see. So before we get started, I do need to go off camera here for a moment. I'll be right back, but I'll put some music on while I'm gone and then we'll talk about what's on tap for a second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, so tonight, so again, a friendly reminder before we do get started here. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's talk about what's on tap. So I got a couple of articles I'm going to go over. One from Bounding in the Comics, one from Bleeding Fool. The first from Bounding in the Comics is a comics related article in which they're talking about the 8 powerful Marvel villains who were ruined by were basically ruined by were ruined by anyways, top 8 powerful Marvel villains who were ruined by the MCU. And then the other article, apparently, so I guess China has decided to stop, has decided to pull all the Pokemon merchandise over, I guess, a recent event that Pokemon Company did at, I guess, the Yasutake Shrine. I'll have to go back and reread that, but anyways, apparently this particular shrine is there to honor the the Japanese soldiers who fell in battle, particularly during World War II, and China just has a standing ban on anything that would associate with that particular monument. But we'll get into all that. Plus, we of course got the wrestling wrap up. We'll look back at this weekend's events. SmackDown from Friday night, Saturday, Saturday's Collision. Also, we may even there was also some news coming out on Chelsea Green as well from SmackDown, and then we'll also take a look ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw and look ahead to some big action coming up this weekend for AEW and TNA. As Friday, TNA has its next big pay-per-view event, while on Saturday, Saturday and Sunday, AEW has Grand Slam and House Rules from Australia. So, with all that being said, and of course, we'll wrap everything up with this day in each history. So, with all that being said and done, let's go ahead and get into the material here. Get into this first article here. And unfortunately, we're going to have to just deal with the fact that Bounding in Comics is forcing ads on us again, making it very hard to all right, anyways. So here we go then. Okay. So, from Abomination to Gore the God Butcher, here are 8 powerful Marvel villains ruined by the MCU. Article by Billy Oduroy. And published February 7th, 2026. So from this past Saturday. So let's take a look at this. So the MCU's villain problem is an issue that has haunted the hit franchise since its early days. Although most fans would argue that it hit a new high after Avengers Endgame, when the franchise seems to have run out of memorable bad guys, the high standards set by Thanos have proved difficult to replicate. With Kevin Feige hoping to replicate the gravitas in Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, on paper, Doctor Doom should be an easy one to pull off, given his formidable reputation in the comics. Unfortunately, the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, I take it, hasn't always gotten the comics villains right. For a long-running franchise, famous for the most resilient superheroes, MCU's villains always short-lived and rarely as multi-dimensional as the franchise's range of heroes. This trend has led to the trivialization of some of the best villains in Marvel Comics, and these are our top picks. She-Hulk was supposed to become Marvel's Batwoman, but the character's titular show collapsed on its very first try because the writing couldn't um, bring the heroine to life. The writers also made a mess out of Banner's biggest villains in the comics when they introduced a pacifist version of Abomination. In the comics, Emil Blonsky is a powerhouse of rage and chaos that tests every Avenger that takes him on. He starts as a dangerous spy before becoming more powerful than Hulk when he first gets his powers. While he isn't the biggest threat to the Avengers, Abomination remains a formidable force. At least his comics version, anyways. The villain got a great MCU run in The Incredible Hulk, while the version wasn't as powerful as the comics version, he was still an acceptably ferocious killing machine that posed a real threat to Bruce Banner. The toned down version of him, introduced in She-Hulk Attorney at Law, however, makes a joke out of the character. Not only does the character pose zero threat, but he's also reduced to hulking up for fun, which doesn't fit any version of the character at any point in the comic. So they really toned down. they really wokeified Abomination is what they're basically saying there. Number 7, Whiplash. I guess number 8 was supposed to be Abomination here. And they didn't really note that, I guess. Number 7, Whiplash. Iron Man 2 proved that having a great catalog of superheroes only works if they are matched with equally formidable villains. Whiplash, portrayed in the movies by Mickey Rourke, is one of the most forgettable MCU villains, mostly because he didn't pose any significant threat to the heroes involved. Whiplash had a uniquely designed armor and weapons, but the character's largely baseless reason for coming after Tony Stark made him inactionable from the outset. Rourke's forced Russian accent and poor choice of humor didn't do much to improve the character either. Whiplash was largely based on two Marvel Comics characters, Mark Scarlatti and Anton Vanko, both of whom are decent villains with a solid backstory compared to the Iron Man 2 incarnation. Even Anton Vanko, the comics version of the Iron Man 2 character, who is largely based on the MCU character, has a simple, more compelling reason to hate Tony Stark, having seen a man in an Iron Man suit destroy his village. With Whiplash being reduced to an impactless villain in the film, his image was destroyed across the Marvel Universe, which meant that even his return with the Masters of Evil in Avengers number 6 was hardly recognized. Huh. Number 6, the Mandarin. One of Iron Man's most archest of enemies here. Um, was heavily featured, of course, in the Marvel superheroes cartoon from Grant Way Lawrence back in the 60s, and was the leader of the opposing villain team of Forceworks in the 90s Iron Man cartoon. One of the MCU's biggest failures is a lack of a proper contest between Tony Stark and the Mandarin. The infamous villain who wields the power of the mysterious Ten Rings is Iron Man's arch nemesis and one of the most powerful villains in the comics, with a high stakes showdown always anticipated when the two meet. However, with the Infinity Saga in its infancy, the MCU chose to introduce Trevor Slattery, the actor impersonating the Mandarin, in Iron Man #3. The Mandarin got a proper introduction in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, but the character wasn't nearly as impactful as his reputation in the comics. Despite the attempt to correct their Iron Man 3 mistake, Slattery remains the most endearing memory of the Mandarin, reducing the character to a joke. Number 5, Gore the God Butcher. Gore the God Butcher. Let's see about this guy now. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody on both my Rumble and YouTube channels. If you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, Thor: Love and Thunder enjoyed some success, mostly because of Natalie Portman's surprise return as Jane Foster and an emotional storyline. However, the MCU once again made a total mess of a major supervillain from the god. Now, this is all, of course, probably in the opinion of the article's writer here, Billy Ordoy. So, but anyways, as they just wouldn't give a villain the chance to express their full potential. In the books, 3 Thors couldn't defeat Gore the God Butcher, who had nearly wiped out all of the gods by the time Thor travels to the future to defeat him. Gore is one of the bloodiest supervillains in Marvel Comics, testing Thor to his very limits. It kind of sounds like, to draw a comparison, kind of a cross between, Zoom, in Flash universe, in terms of going back and forth in time, and being a powerful enemy, maybe like Doomsday and Superman. But anyways, well, I guess Doomsday would be more comparable to Abomination than anybody else. But it's Gore. Okay, yeah, we read that part. Unlike the MCU's version, who is more creepy than dangerous. Despite being the perfect actor for the role, in the perfect setting to introduce a formidable supernatural villain, the franchise MCU did the exact opposite. The only thing the film gets somewhat right is the villain's backstory, which accurately justifies his hatred for the gods. However, Gore does all his god butchering off screen, leaving him with no significant contribution to the plot besides kidnapping children. Malekith. Here is another formidable villain from Thor's Rogues Gallery that the MCU turned into a generic character in dull gray armor with little justification for being overtly evil. Malekith, the Accursed, in the comics is a force to be reckoned with in the pages of Marvel Comics. In the books, he wields the dreaded Casket of Ancient Winters, which can turn entire planets into ice-covered wastelands. He is so powerful that he is the supervillain at the center of, quote, the War of the Realms, unquote, one of the comics' biggest contenders for an Avengers film. Despite Christopher Eccleston's best effort to deliver a memorable version of Malekith in Thor: The Dark World, MCU just didn't have the script for a proper treatment. Not only does he pose no threat to the heroes while wielding a whole Infinity Stone, but Malekith is also taken out in the most comical way in the franchise's history, crushed by his own ship. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is just the corporations just just messing around because they don't want to offend anybody, or if they're just trying to just separate the MCU from the comics rule. But at least with this one guy, Billy O'Doy, he apparently is turned off by what they've been doing to these villains, apparently. Anyway, number 3, Red Hulk. Now I know in the comics, probably is colored, but this he doesn't look. He looks more sunburnt, pink than red there, like cherry colored red as just full on red. So anyway. The introduction of Harrison Ford as General Thaddeus Ross, Red Hulk, was one of the biggest selling points for Captain America: Brave New World. After the prolonged absence of Bruce Banner in the franchise since Endgame, Red Hulk was the perfect opportunity to change the character's narrative while keeping the power of the Hulk in future films, albeit as a villain. In the comics, Red Hulk is the epitome of military strategy and a master of mental strength, whose alter ego is well guarded. When fully unleashed, he poses a bigger threat than the Green Guy, absorbing energy and emitting intense heat comparable to a nuclear furnace. Let's see. However, besides limited screen time that doesn't really allow Ford's Hulk to do anything, the MCU's version of the character is volatile and hardly different from Green Hulk. The MCU opted for brute strength without focusing on the actual features that make Red Hulk a real nightmare in the comics. After the film became a box office bomb, the character is unlikely to appear again anytime soon, continuing the MCU's trend of destroying Marvel villains. Of course, unless they decide, somebody kicks them in the head and decides, hey, you know something? Maybe we're screwing all this up here. Maybe we ought to, I don't know, be truer to the comics? Be truer to the original comics? Rather than just doing a lot of the modern day and woke baloney. Number 2, MODOK. Oh, God. Oh, God. The pictorial right there is anyway, so number 2, MODOK here. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, is another MCU project that didn't live up to expectations, and most of the failure came down to ineffective villains. The film turned MODOK into an all-around joke instead of the relentless menace he is in the comics, and as portrayed, of course, on the 90s Iron Man cartoon as well. Although he isn't the scariest of supervillains, MODOK, I guess, played George Tarleton, in parentheses there, poses a real existential threat to everyone, especially after he becomes the leader AIM. The terrible CGI used for the character in the 2023 film, coupled with his terrible script, in which he exists entirely at King the Conqueror's behest, left little comparison between the MCU version and the comic character. And as Yellow Jacket is not the MODOK from the comics, MCU's butchering of the character has left little chance of proper MODOK ever appearing on the screens in the future. And then the number one villain that the MCU has butchered, King the Conqueror. Let's see what Billy has to say about how they worked this guy. MCU had great plans for King the Conqueror, initially setting him up to become the big bad of the multiverse saga. I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put some music on to entertain you guys while I'm gone. So just give me a sec here to do that. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Anyways, let's see. Hey, Metal. They did King really dirty, but they did not do him dirtier than Thanos. That's a load. Well, this whole article has been about how they basically butchered villains. So, anyways. Unfortunately, the journey got off on the wrong foot when they left their earliest variant. When they let their earliest variant get killed by some of the franchise's weakest heroes in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Based on the film's post-credit scene, the plan clearly was to set the powerful Council of Kings as another Thanos-led villain. But that backfired when Jonathan Majors' legal problems forced Disney to cancel the actor's contract and to write the character out of the MCU. The villain ended up accomplishing absolutely nothing, leaving his comical defeat and subsequent death at the hands of ants as his lasting memory, which is a total travesty. In the comics, King is a manipulative genius with an unmatched mastery of time travel, giving him access to knowledge, weapons, and technology that most Marvel characters can't even fathom. The Avengers stand very little chance against the threat of a full-strength Kang, but that is unlikely to ever happen in the MCU since Marvel doesn't seem interested in recasting the role. It's not the character's fault that the actor portraying him got arrested. I don't know why they're trying to link the actor and character. They could just probably recast him, but then again, they'd probably do a lot better if they went back to the original canon of the comics. But no, corporations don't seem to want to do that. They just want to push whatever sticks up there, what. So anyways, let's move on to the next story that we were going to do tonight here from Bleeding Fool. And it's in regards to Pokemon. And this is an interesting story that I saw. All right, so I'm kind of glad they aren't recasting him because the original idea sucked anyway. Okay. Well, I think what we can often say is that with some of what they've been doing with DC and Marvel, in particular, the last few years here has sucked anyway. So whether it's in the comics or on the big screen, right? Even some of the stuff they try to put on TV has not been, I wasn't too fond of the whole My Adventures of Superman, show. But a good piece of news is for the first time since 2014, you can start seeing Crypto the Superdog again on MeTV Tunes Sunday or Saturday afternoons at 12:30 in the afternoon. So, and Legion of Superheroes on at 12 noon. So, anyways, just so I can get track of this blasted cursor. Anyways, let's see now. Yeah. All right. Pokemon merchandise vanishes from China after Shrine uproar. Article by Mike Murphy, published today. Look at all the Pokemon there. You got You got on the far left there, you got Gengar, you got Ghastly, got Mime Jr., got Pikachu, let's see, Chimchar, you got Ludicolo, Piplup. We can see the Meowth there. And I can't remember that other little one to our right, Pikachu's left. All right, so let's see what's going on here. So the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda outlet, Global Times, recently reported that Japanese clothing giant Uniqlo and China's Li Ning have removed all Pokemon merchandise from their online and physical stores in China after a controversy erupted over a Pokemon-related event linked to Tokyo's Yatsukimi Shrine. Let's see. The state-run newspaper celebrated the move, saying its reporters verified that Pokemon-branded products disappeared from Uniqlo's official app, JD.com, and Taobao storefronts. Now, mind you, I'm not even. Well, actually, I did pre-read some of this, which is why I decided to go ahead and read it here. So the paper also claimed that major Uniqlo retail locations across China confirmed the removal. The Global Times described the withdrawal as nationwide. Li Ning reportedly said it would suspend sales of Pokemon products indefinitely. Neither company gave an official reason, though state media coverage heavily implied the decision was retaliation for the Yatsukimi Shrine connection. Sleeping again. All right. Anyways, Yatsukimi Shrine is a Shinto site and honors about 2.5 million Japanese war dead, including 14 classified war criminals from World War II. War criminals, I guess, in the eyes of China. I don't know if in the eyes of China or eyes of the world. Turtwig. Okay, thank you. Turtwig. A turtle twig, basically. The shrine remains a flashpoint for nationalist tensions. Both Beijing and Seoul condemn visits there as glorifying Japan's wartime past. Still, prominent Japanese leaders such as Prime Minister Takaichi Sanai maintained ties with the shrine, often sending offerings or attending ceremonies. The uproar began when Chinese internet users spotted a listing for a Pokemon trading card game meetup at Yatsukimi Shrine on the official Pokemon website. The event was not corporate sponsored, and Pokemon quickly deleted the post and apologized. Quote, "We sincerely apologize for the mixed reactions and opinions," unquote. The company stated it said it would tighten internal procedures to prevent future incidents. sounds like somebody decided to have a Pokemon event at the shrine that wasn't linked to the corporation itself. Now we know that particularly East Asians have kind of that whole thing about appearance and not wanting not wanting to engage in conflict when they can avoid it. So that apology did little to calm Beijing's outrage network. The People's Daily, the Communist Party's main mouthpiece, accused Pokemon of failing to, quote, uphold correct values, unquote, and urged, quote, respect for the feelings and customs, unquote, of Chinese citizens. Around the same time, another state outlet, China Daily, published a cartoon portraying Pikachu buried beneath a cliff while surrounded by ghostly figures, an imperial Japanese soldier. Quote, mess with historical red lines and you lose more than just fans. Unquote. Wow! That kind of imagery almost sounds like China is threatening to go to war with Japan. I'd say the CCP may be a little bit of DELUISION. AL. So, anyways, back to the article here. Let's see. Chinese media also revived older grievances, including 2019 photos showing employees from Pokemon affiliate Creatures Inc. visiting the shrine. The pictures were deleted after backlash in China and South Korea. Analysts note that Beijing often turns such controversies into loyalty tests for foreign corporations. Yeah, it just sounds like another case of people trying to find reasons to start a fight or just moan because they have nothing better to do with themselves. Past targets include Dolce and Gabbana, Swatch, and several hotel chains pressured into treating Taiwan and Hong Kong as Chinese territory. Yeah, I just say, you know something, if China wants to be that way, fine. Granted, you may lose out on some money, but you don't have to like deal with them. If they want to walk around with sticks up their rear end, then let them walk around with sticks up their rear end, and you can do your business elsewhere. Uniqlo, one of China's largest foreign retailers, has faced scrutiny over alleged use of cotton from the Uyghur region, accusations the company denies. Li Ning maintains high profile partnerships with NBA players and has aligned itself closely with government messaging. The swift disappearance of Pokemon products from both brands adds to a growing pattern of companies accommodating Chinese state sensitivities. Alrighty then. So we talk a lot about how woke and cancel culture affect here in the States, but China does it. It sounds like does it infinitely more. Anyways, now with all that being said, so now let's see. So yeah, 45 minutes. I was able to maximize the time there. So now what we're going to do, we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap up and look back over this past weekend's wrestling events, WWE, AEW, and look ahead to tonight, of course, tonight's Monday Night Raw, as well as take a quick peek at this weekend's upcoming action in TNA and AEW as well. They've got a couple big events here. So first out, let's look back to Friday Night SmackDown. Let's go all the way back to that. I can indeed. Yeah, all right. So this past Friday Night SmackDown, as of course they're building towards Elimination Chamber towards the end of the month here. This past Friday Night SmackDown, which came from the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, with Wade Barrett and Joe Tessitore on commentary for the USA Network. The show opened up with a women's tag team title match. The team of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky retained over the team of Julia and Kiana James. Julia, of course, the current WWE Women's United States Champion. Right now, there's been some criticism online from considers saying how Julia is being booked right now and how the U.S. title is being booked right now. As Julia, not only did her team lose, but Julia herself, who is current Women's United States Champion in the WWE, took the pinfall herself after the Rio's finishing combination of Rhea Ripley's Riptide maneuver and Io Sky's moonsault. In a triple threat qualifying match for the Women's Elimination Chamber, Tiffany Stratton making her in-ring return after being out for the last couple of months here, defeated Lash Legend and Chelsea Green. Of course, Lash Legend had Nia Jax and Chelsea Green. Lash Legend had Nia Jax in her corner. Chelsea Green had Alba Fire her corner. Aside from, of course, Tiffany Stratton's return, also it was reported that during this match, while executing what is known as a coast-to-coast move, in which a wrestler leaps from one turnbuckle to a parallel turnbuckle the other side of the ring. The move was first popularized, of course, by Rob Van Dam. He called his version the Van Terminator. Chelsea Green, while executing the move, ended up spraining her ankle, which unfortunately made her have to miss out on a mixed tag match in which Ethan Page was forced to defend with La Hiedra in AAA's action over the weekend. But she was walking around in a walking boot. Initially, they thought it might have been a break, but it was apparently reported as a sprain. But from the picture she's shown online, it was a pretty nasty bruise, to say the least. Obafemi, who has been now confirmed is currently a free agent on the WWE, meaning that he can work on both SmackDown and Raw, defeated Kip Wilson in 48 seconds. Wilson decided to mouth off of him, calling himself the feminist and accusing Obafemi of toxic masculinity. Saw Obafemi just utterly annihilate him. Ultimately finishing him off with the fall from grace, that pop-up powerbomb of his. Then in a singles match, Tama Tonga of the MFTs, with JC Mateo and Tonga Loa in his corner, defeated Shinsuke Nakamura in 10 minutes 26 seconds. In a tag team match that was set up during the night during a confrontation between WWE Women's Champion Jade Cargill and the Judgment Day's Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Liv Morgan, of course, making an appearance on SmackDown following her her win at the Royal Rumble in terms of determining who she would choose to take on at Royal Rumble, which also brought out Jordynne Grace to confront everyone involved in the ring, leading to Nick Aldis setting up this tag match and also setting up for a match on next week in which Jade Cargill will be defending the women's title against Jordynne Grace on next week's SmackDown. And the main event saw a men's qualifying triple threat match for the Elimination Chamber. Randy Orton successfully defeat Aleister Black and Solo Sikoa, as Solo Sikoa was going for the Samoan Spike. Randy Orton hitting the RKO on Sikoa for the 1-2-3. So that was Saturday. Now, as we get ready to move ahead, or that was on Friday night. So let's move ahead to Saturday night and Collision on there. As of course they're making final preparations for. They're of course making final preparations for this Saturday's Grand Slam Australia, as it were. So on this past Saturday's Collision, coming from the Pearl Theater at Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's see. The Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, defeated the Gates of Agony, Bishop Khan Toa Leona, in just under 14 minutes. Kevin Knight of Jet Speed with Mike Bailey in his corner defeated Scorpio Sky of Sky Knight with Christopher Daniels in his corner. Mina Shirakawa defeated Viva Vaughn in just over 5.5 minutes. In mixed tag action as kind of a warm up to their upcoming match against Orange Cassidy and Tony Storm, in which the person who loses the fall will lose their hair, will get their head shaved. The Death Riders, Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta, defeated the Skyflight duo of Dante Martin and Zeta Steel with Christopher Daniels in their corner by referee's decision. Tekla defeated Brittany Brooks in 39 seconds. Basically in, I guess, preparation for her upcoming title match against Chris Statlander. In an eight-man tag parking lot fight, Eddie Kingston, Ortiz, and the Rascals duo of Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz defeated a team of Big Bill, Brian Keith, and the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson. And the main event saw in a three-way match, Tommaso Ciampa retained the TNT title over CML World Heavyweight Champion Claudio Castagnoli of the Death Riders and Roderick Strong. So now, moving ahead to tonight. On tonight's Monday Night Raw. And I get to that. Tonight's Monday Night Raw, they continue the build towards the Elimination Chamber. Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary, coming from the Rocket Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. In a match for the WWE World Tag Team titles, the Usos, Jay and Jimmy Uso, will be defending the titles against Alpha Academy's Otis and Akira Tozawa. In another triple threat qualifying match for the women's elimination chamber, Rhea Ripley, one half of the women's tag team champions, will be taking on Lyra Valkyria and Ivy Nile. There's the three of them. In a tag team match, Los Americanos, Bravo and Rayo Americano, will be taking on Javon Evans and a mystery partner. In a men's qualifying triple threat match for the Elimination Chamber, LA Knight, making his in-ring return, is set to take on Penta, and they're set to take on Austin Theory of the Vision. And Maxine Dupree looks to get some revenge on Natty after what she's done, as they will be taking each other on. So now, one more piece of now with that, taking a look at need to take a look at, of course. So this Friday, TNA will be having an event. Let me just look that up real quick. TNA's event coming up here this Friday. No Surrender will be coming from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to need to go off camera here for a quick moment. So I'll be right back. Put some music on while I'm gone. All right, anyways, I'm back. So, anyways, just continuing on with, on TNA Plus from the Pinnacle in Nashville, Tennessee, already signed for No Surrender this Friday, February 13th. The NXT's Channing Lorenzo will be defending the TNA International title against Trey Miguel, who earned that shot by securing the briefcase in the Feast or Fired match. An 8-man tag action, the TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, team with the Righteous of Dutch and Vincent to take on Order 4. The match many people are saying doesn't make much sense. Mustafa Ali, Jason Hotch, John Scott, and Secret Agent Zero. Another tag team match. Eddie Edwards and Nick Nemeth will team up to take on Leon Slater and Mike Santana, as Eddie Edwards, of course, secured the briefcase to go after the TNA World Title, and this will be Leon Slater's return from his visa problems and his first in-ring action since all that was going down. And then also for the TNA Knockouts World Title, Lei Ying Lee will be defending the title against Ariana Grace. So that's on Friday. Then coming up on Saturday the all right, this Saturday the 14th, Valentine's Day. Actually, in fact, Saturday and Sunday, AEW has a couple of big events coming up this weekend that will be on pay-per-view, I believe. Grand Slam Australia on Saturday. At Grand Slam Australia from the Qudos Bank Arena in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, airing on TNT. The matches that are signed for that show include for the John Moxley of the Death Riders will be defending the AEW Continental title against Don Callis family member Konosuke Takeshita. In the mixed tornado tag team match that we were talking about earlier, Orange Cassidy and Tony Storm will be taking on the Death Riders duo of Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta, with the loser of the fall getting their head shaved. In the match for the AEW Women's World Tag Team titles, all right, so I was mistaken about that match actually happened already, I believe. But anyways, in the match, the AEW Women's World Tag Team titles, the Babes of Wrath of Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale will be defending against the team of Megabat of Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Then in a number one contenders match for the AEW World Title, Andrade El Idolo will be taking on Hangman Adam Page. In the main event, we'll see MJF defend the AEW World Title against Brody King. So that's on Saturday from Australia. And AEW also will be having House Rules Australia on Sunday from the Brisbane Entertainment Centre in Brisbane and Boondall, Queensland, Australia. No matches have been announced for that one. All right, so that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up. So now we will go ahead and we'll move on to this day in each history. Today is, of course, Monday, February the 9th, 2026. So let's take a look back at this day in each history. So first off, we're heading back 50 years ago. And on this date, 50 years ago today, back in 1976 rather, 1976. On this date in 1976, Gene Kiniski and Siegfried Stanke defeated Dean Higuchi and George Wells. Most fans would remember Dean Higuchi more from his time in the WWF as Dean Ho, one half of the WWF Tag Team Champions. In Vancouver, they defeated them to become the new Vancouver's version of the NWA Canadian Tag Team titles. So Gene Kiniski and Siegfried Stanky defeated Dean Higuchi and George Wells to become the Vancouver version of the NWA Canadian Tag Team Champions. All right, so now moving on to the year 2006, 20 years ago today. On this date, 20 years ago today, in 2006. On this date in the year 2006, Kelma Dick's Papillon Rose, the new season, premiered on Japanese television on this date back in 2006. Papillon 6, the new season, is a 6-episode TV series titled Papillon Rose, the new season. It was broadcast in Japan in 2006. The TV series images and dialogue are toned down considerably from the 2003. All right, so anyways, Papillon Rose, the new season, premiered on this date in 2006. Papillon Rose is an anime series which parodies magical girl genre, particularly Sailor Moon and Cutie Honey. Now, moving on from there. Moving ahead to the year 2011. On this date in the year 2011, the first issue of Hack Slash from Image went on sale on this date back in 2011. That was 15 years ago. Sold for $3.50 and was $3.50 and was 32 pages. So on this date, 15 years ago, the first issue of Hack Slash from Image Comics went on sale on this date back in 2011. I think it ran for something like 25 issues, what I understand. And finally, on this day in the year 2021, 5 years ago today, on this date 5 years ago today in the year 2021, Disney was forced to shut down Blue Sky Studios due to the current economic realities related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So Blue Sky Studios was an American visual effects and computer animation studio, which was based in Greenwich, Connecticut. Let's see. So basically, they specialize in some animated films and all that. But basically, so on this date 5 years ago today, Disney was forced to shut down Blue Sky Studios. All right, so with all that being said and done, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I'll be and this Sunday, of course, we'll be continuing our look at comics that went on sale in August of 1940, focusing in on Marvel this week. We will be I'll have Sabrina from Devil Flyer Momentum joining me this Sunday. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.